Hi, my name is Holly Bonfig-Becker, and I'm an educator here at the University of Iowa Hospitals and Clinics for the Radiation Sciences program. I am also the eValue administrator, so that's why I'm here to give you a brief introduction to eValue so that you can begin evaluating and signaturing comping with the students in clinic. What is eValue? eValue is a web-based evaluation system. It contains our students' information, such as their signatures and competencies, their evaluations, their certifications, and so much more. Since it is web-based, it is available to all staff and students who are active within it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, on any computer that has internet access. How do you become active? When you were hired, I was given your name and email address, and I inputted you into eValue as a technologist educator. Once you complete your orientation in clinic, and after you've watched this instructional video, you will contact me using the information here on the screen and let me know that you've finished your orientation. I will then activate you in eValue and send you a username and a password so that you can begin using eValue. For first-time users, you'll receive an email that looks just like this. You can see here that it comes from me at eValue, and it sends you all of your login information, your username, your password, as well as a hyperlink to logging into eValue. When you click on this hyperlink, you're going to be brought to the eValue main screen. You can see here in the upper right-hand corner that there's an orange login button. When you click the orange login button, it goes ahead and brings you into the login screen. Here is where you will need to put in the login name as well as the password that was emailed to you when I activated you. You are not required at any time to put in an institutional code. Once you've put in your login name and your password, you'll simply click on the login button, which will bring you to your user home screen. This is going to be the screen that you see every time you log in to eValue. Now the first thing you're probably going to want to do is change your login information to something that you're going to be able to remember more easily. To do this, I'm going to have you log into eValue, click on the purple My Profile tile at the top right-hand corner of your screen. Once you've clicked on My Profile, you're going to choose Submenu Password Change, and that's going to bring you into our password change screen. Now you can see here down at the bottom, you can change both your username and your password. However, you must do them separately. If you would like to change your username, simply type in your preferred login name, confirm it, click on Update Login, and now you are able to change your password. Type in your password of choice, confirm it, and then choose Update Password. At this point, I would recommend to you to log out and then log back in using your new information to make sure that everything was changed okay. If you're having trouble logging in, you forget your username or password or lose your email, certainly call or email me and I can generate a new one for you. Now that you've got your username and login and you're active in eValue, one of the most common things you're going to do are student evaluations. How this works is that a student receives an email from eValue around the end of their second week of their rotation asking them, who did you work with? The students will choose the techs they worked with. Those techs will get an email saying you have an evaluation to complete. You'll fill it out. The students and us educators can access the completed evaluation. Two things that you should remember are that evaluations must be filled out in chronological order. That means if student A sends you an evaluation on Wednesday, and student B sends you an evaluation on Thursday, you must complete student A's evaluation before you will be allowed to fill out student B's evaluation. Also, reminders come every 72 hours. The reason this is set up this way is because we understand that people are busy, and while you might get an email from a student saying, hey, fill out an evaluation for me, you might not have time right that minute in clinic to fill it out. We also know that emails get lost. So if student A sends you an evaluation on Wednesday and you're totally swamped in clinic and can't fill it out, no problem. You can at any point in time pull up that email, click on the hyperlink, and go to the evaluation and fill it out. If after 3 days you haven't filled out that evaluation, eValue will send you a new email saying, hey, you have this evaluation hanging out, and it'll also include the hyperlink. So don't worry if you don't have time to do it now, and don't worry if you lose your email because another email will come to you. The email that you receive will look something like this. It'll have your name at the top, and it's going to tell you that you've been scheduled to do an evaluation, and it'll list the course or rotation that the student was in with you. Here in the middle, you'll see the hyperlink saying you can go ahead and click on here, and it'll take you directly to the evaluation. However, if the hyperlink isn't working or you've forgotten your login screen, you can go ahead and click on here, click on the orange login button, and you'll be able to find your evaluations this way as well. When you open a student evaluation, it's going to look something like this. Here, the student's picture will show up in the right-hand corner. It'll tell you their name, and it'll also tell you the dates that you were with the student in this particular rotation. The rotation is going to show up in this section here, evaluation type, also in course rotation, and it's going to tell you again what day did you work with this student. Now, our evaluations are comprised of 11 different sections. Each individual section has a title. For example, here we have technical skills, which is followed by a short paragraph explaining to you what we feel like constitutes technical skill knowledge. Under the paragraph, you will find 4 different sections that describe different levels of understanding. What we want you to do is click on the button next to what you think best describes the way your student behaved in clinic. For example, if you were working with Megan and you felt like she performed her duties correctly, she was efficient working alone, she looks at the small details, and she can problem solve, then you would go ahead and click the radio button here. Now, we know that not every student in every situation fits into a cookie cutter box. However, you are required to choose one of the 4 radio buttons, but we have also included an example and comment box. So if you feel like this description mostly fits Megan, but there are a few things you want to add or subtract, you can certainly type it here in the comment section. This is also open, for example, if a student were to receive the very lowest score, we want to know why. What happened that caused you to give this student such a low score? So you can go ahead and type in here exactly what the problem is, exactly what you thought happened, and not have to rely on this information here to explain it all. When you are filling out an evaluation, choosing one of these 4 buttons is mandatory for every question. However, the examples and comments are not. They're there for you to use if you feel you need them. When you reach the bottom of your evaluation, there will be a Submit button. You can click the Submit button and it will either go away because it's completed, or you will receive a small alert such as this one saying you have forgotten to answer a mandatory question. This way, if you thought you clicked a radio button and it didn't click, or you accidentally skipped a question, eValue is going to highlight it in red. You can go back and fill out that answer and then click Submit. There's another way to find your evaluations if you lose your email or you can't use the hyperlink in the email. If you log into eValue, you can simply click on the blue Evaluations tile, submenu to be completed, and it'll bring you to a list of evaluations that you have pending. If you would like to fill out the evaluation, you can simply click on Edit Evaluation, and it will open up the screen to the evaluation that we saw before. Now you'll notice next to Edit Evaluation, there's another choice there that says Suspend. We stress to our students that it is very important for them to choose every single tech that they worked with. So we also understand that you guys are busy. We understand that you bounce from area to area, and we understand that you cover lunches. So if Megan sends you an evaluation, but you only worked with her for a half hour to cover lunch, and you don't really feel like you have anything to contribute to an evaluation, you can choose our Suspend option. If you click on the Suspend hyperlink, it's going to bring you to our suspension screen. You have 2 choices. You can choose Yes to use the default reason of I did not participate, or you can go ahead and type in your own reason for suspending this evaluation. One of these options must be chosen. If you leave this as No, and then do not type anything in the reason box and click Suspend Evaluation, you will receive a warning saying that you've left a mandatory question unanswered. So we have a way to remedy a student sending you an evaluation that you feel like you can't fill out. But what happens when a student that you really want to evaluate doesn't send you an evaluation? We have an option for this too, and it's called On the Fly. Now, we understand that sometimes students can't remember every single person that they worked with. We know at the beginning students can't remember all of the tech's names, or likewise, if it's a new tech, they might not know their name all that well. There's another reason we know sometimes students don't send evaluations. If they have a particularly bad experience with a technologist, they may choose not to send that technologist an evaluation so that they don't get a bad score. But if something happened that a student would receive a bad score, we still want to know about it. So if they do not send you an evaluation, but you really feel like you want to evaluate them for good or bad reasons, you can fill out an on the fly. Now what you would do is log into eValue and click on the blue evaluations tile, submenu on the fly, which is going to bring you to our on the fly evaluation screen. It's going to ask you to select a type, who's the student you want to evaluate, what rotation are you in, and when did this happen. Now you can see here we have a number of evaluation types. The two most common used for on-the-fly evaluations are concern card about a student and praise card about a student. If you have something concerning you need to tell us, you would certainly choose concern card. Likewise, if a student did something amazing and you just felt like their advisor needed to know about it, you can fill out a praise card about a student. Here you can see that a concern card is being filled out by Megan. You pick concern card about a student. The student you're evaluating is Megan. This happened in our ASC clinic, and it happened during the first week in May. When you click on the next button, you're brought to our on-the-fly evaluation screen. All of these questions are mandatory. We ask that you tell us what happened, why are you filling out this concern card, and then explain yourself in words. Then you're going to tell us what happened with this student. Did you sit down and discuss this concern with them, yes or no? How comfortable was the situation with this student when you were discussing it? And if you would like us to contact you about this concern. Now, if you wish for us to contact you, you can choose yes. You can type in a number for us to contact you at, and you can choose submit. And we will contact you as soon as we have a chance to look at the information. Once all the evaluations are filled out, the educators and students alike are able to access the completed evaluation information. You can see here that Megan has chosen to look at the comments on her evaluations. Megan's here. It tells us our activity, who her evaluator is, and what the comment is. So you can see here that Megan received comments for technical skills, organization, attitude, and overall comments. If Megan would like to see the number score associated with this as well, you can click on View Complete Evaluation, and it's going to show something very similar to what you saw when you were filling out her evaluation. Sometimes at first it makes the technologist a little bit uncomfortable that the student has their name and they know exactly what they scored them on and exactly what they had to say about them. However, I'd like to assure you that we have very little issue with this. The reason students need to know who filled out the evaluation is because if they are accused of something particularly heinous, we need to be able to facilitate a conversation between the advisor, the student, and the technologist filling out the evaluation. Or if a student consistently gets great evaluations on all of their rotations, but is consistently receiving bad evaluations from one particular evaluator, we need to find out what's going on. Whether the student is just not able to work well with this particular technologist, if there has been a problem with the other evaluations, we just need to be able to know. That's about it for evaluations. They're pretty straightforward, they're pretty simple, and after you fill out a couple, you'll really have the hang of it. Your other major component in evaluation are going to be signatures and competencies with the students. Before a student comps on an exam, they are under direct supervision. What this means is that they must have a technologist in the room with them while they are doing an exam. Once the exam is over, the technologist must approve the films and send them, and a technologist must assist them with any repeat films that need to be taken. If a student wants to signature or comp, they must state their intention before the exam begins. To be eligible to signature, the student must have completed the didactic requirements, which our instructor will notify the clinic by email. To be eligible to comp on an exam, they must have completed their didactic requirements, they must have at least one signature on that particular exam, and they must show you their signature before they are allowed to comp. There are also certain standards that our patients must meet for them to be eligible to be the subject of a signature or competency. They must be at least 13 years old to qualify for an adult exam, and they must be physically able to do what is required. There are some things that we do not encourage our students to do for comps or signatures, such as patients in casts or fixators, braces, or patients who are in poor physical condition. To signature, the student's role includes evaluating the requisition on Epic. This means that the student must pull up the patient's record on Epic, read the reason for the exam, and be able to explain to you as the comper why we are doing this exam. They have to completely set up the room. They have to set up the computer controls. They need to get their patient and double identify them, do all of the positioning correctly, evaluate the image, and then send the patient and their exam. A tech's role during the signature is simply to observe the student from inside the exam room, correct them as needed, and then complete the signature form on eValue. I know that some people learn different ways of doing things. We teach our students here ways that are different from St. Luke's and Cedar Rapids, ways that are different from Waterloo, but we have a whole melting pot of techs here. So it's a little bit difficult for everyone to remember exactly what we think the student should have to do to comp. We've tried to make this a little bit easier. There are requirements listed in 3 different places. There are neon green binders in all of the clinical areas, and the person in charge of that area will be able to tell you exactly where they keep their binder. Inside the binder is a copy of all of the students' comp sheets so that you can see section by section what we require of our students for that exam for a signature or competency. These same sheets are available on the student's clinical internship icon site, which you can ask them to pull up for you. There is also a link to the competency sheets on the eValue homepage. This is an example of what a competency sheet might look like. You can see for a PA chest all of the steps that we need the student to go through before they are given a signature or a competency on a PA chest. There are sheets very similar to this for every single exam that we ask our students to signature or comp on. For a competency, the student's role is to state their intention before the exam starts. They need to evaluate, perform, and complete the exam just like a signature, and then send a comp sheet to the tech for grading. The tech's role is simply to observe the exam from within the room, notify the student whether they passed or failed, and then complete the eValue form for that comp. There are some times where it's not appropriate for a student to signature or comp. To decline a comp at the very beginning, if the department's too busy, if you see that the patient's condition is not appropriate for comping, it is totally acceptable for you to say, I'm sorry, but you won't be able to comp at this time. Likewise, you are able to stop a comp even after it has started. If the patient is compromised either to something the student has done or their condition begins to deteriorate, at any point in time you can step in and say, you know what, we're going to have to stop this comp. We'll try it again next time. If you feel like halfway through the comp the student is really not prepared, they're doing a lot of things wrong, they don't seem sure of what they're doing, you can step in and tell the student, you know what, we're going to have to stop this. And there are 2 things that you can do. You can have the student send you the comp sheet in eValue and mark it as a repeat, or you can say, you know what, we're going to consider that a practice exam and then an eValue form will not be generated. For signatures and competencies, it's very similar to an evaluation. A student will go on, they'll log the competency or signature they completed and who they completed it with. The technologist then receives an email that looks very similar to an evaluation email, and you can either use the hyperlink in the email or you can log into eValue to complete the competency. Here's an example of a competency email. It'll say here, addressed to you as the technologist. It's going to tell you that you've been scheduled here to do a position projection evaluation of whatever your student in whatever rotation. And then down here you'll find the hyperlink that will take you to that competency. If you have a signature, you will see a screen similar to this. All we ask is that you confirm or reject the signature. for example here, the AP chest, and then click Save Changes. If the hyperlink in the email is for a comp, you will be brought to your evaluations to be completed screen. You can see here that your student is asking you to complete an AP ankle comp. You can choose Edit Evaluation, and that's going to bring you to our competency form. Now, we have recently switched over to a pass-fail competency, which means that you will either say, yes, our student passed it, or no, the student did not pass it. Both of these questions here, pass or repeat and comments, are mandatory. That means once you choose pass or repeat, you need to type comments in here. If you say pass, it can be something as simple as great job, or keep up the good work, or the student did a fantastic job. If you choose repeat, we need to know specifically why the patient had to repeat. For example, forgot markers, marked incorrectly, used incorrect angle, forgot to shield patient. Whatever the reason is for you, we need to have that typed right here in the comment box. Another thing that's extremely important to pay attention to when you are comping with a student is to make sure that you are filling out the correct form. You'll see here under evaluation type that just like the previous screen, we're filling out an ankle AP comp. Sometimes if a student's signature is in comps at the same time, or if the student just puts the exam in incorrectly, it's really kind of an ordeal to fix. Also, we don't want students running around thinking that they have signatures or competencies that they don't actually have. So before you click the submit button, it's extremely important that you double check the evaluation type and say, yes, Steph's student did do an AP ankle comp with me, and that's what I want to fill out. Then you can click submit and the evaluation will go away. Once a student has completed a competency and they have passed it, they will now be under indirect supervision. What this means is that a student can perform the exam alone in the room. However, a tech must be in the immediate area. So for example, in general, a student can be in any of the 2 general rooms or the chest room while a tech is at the island, and that is 100% appropriate if the student has completed the comp for the exam they are doing. At the end, a tech must okay the images for sending, and you must go in the room with them if they're required to repeat. So for example, if a student is doing a PA and lateral chest, when they're all finished, they might stick their head out and say, hey Holly, could you come check my images? If you go over there and see that they have clipped the angles on their lungs, you can say, I think we need to repeat the lateral, and then you must be in the room with them. Otherwise, you can say, yep, those look great, and the student is then allowed to send those images. Sometimes a student completes a competency and then maybe doesn't do such a great job of those films in the future. This can be remedied. If you have a student who says they've comped on their exam, but you've noticed that they've done something really incorrect during the exam, or you've noticed that they've had to repeat their last 3 PA tests, you can give the student a remedial comp. Now, a remedial comp can be given by a technologist or an educator if they feel like the student is not doing a quality job of a competency that they've already passed. A remedial is given when a student performs an exam incorrectly after comping and passing. Once they're given the remedial, they are required to get 2 additional signatures on that exam, and they are back under direct supervision until they have completed those 2 additional signatures. To give a remedial comp, it's an on-the-fly evaluation. So you would still go into your evaluations tile, submenu on the fly, where you'll see this very familiar on-the-fly evaluation screen. Under evaluation type, you would choose here at the bottom, remedial comp. You would fill out all of the same information that you fill out when you're filling out a regular on-the-fly evaluation, and click on Next. Here, it's going to ask you what date the remedial was given, what viewer projection, for example, a lateral chest, and why you're giving this remedial. They're consistently clipping the lungs. If it's an AP foot, they forgot to angle. Anything that would cause them to fail a comp causes a remedial comp if they've already passed. Then you just need to type in your name and click Submit. A few little extra tidbits for you to know about our comping and signature policies. Students must stay in their own area to comp. So for example, a student who's in general can comp on a portable, they can comp on a general exam. A student who's in the OR can comp on a general exam, a portable exam, but a student who is in fluoro cannot come over to general and comp. A general student cannot go to peds, an MS student cannot come up to fluoro. They have to stay in their own area. There are a few exceptions, like I said, for example, anyone based out of that area, like ports or OR are based out of general, can comp in that area, but the general students will receive preference on any of those comps. And in the last 2 weeks of the program, if a student has any competencies left to complete, they can go to any area and comp on that as long as the student in that area already has their competency. I know this is a lot of information. You can always ask questions. There's tons of people to ask. You can ask the students themselves. They've been using eValue for quite a bit of time now. You can ask any of the season techs in the area who have also been using eValue for a long time, the supervisors, or myself. Again, here is my information. Now that you're finished watching this video, I'd like for you to send me an email giving me your name and letting me know that you have completed the eValue introduction video, and I will send you your login so you can get started.